All right. Here we go, back again on the other side of the coin.
Hey, welcome back, everyone, to the other side of the coin. Off the back of yesterday's disappointing results, and obviously all the results that have taken place today, in terms of Leicester winning, in terms of West Ham winning, don't really care. Man City winning, obviously we want them to go out there and just beat everyone, but we have dropped out of top four, which is, I mean, it's not the end of the world. As the boys we said yesterday in the review, that still quite a lot of games to go, and we can bounce back. We just need to be. We've got some heavy fixtures coming up, so we have to be very, very good in the next month. But today's show is all about Atletico Madrid. Everything we're going to talk about is Atletico Madrid, and in order to do this, we've got the main man, Jack Benson, here. So first of all, Jack, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm great. Thank you very much for having me on the show. Looking forward to sort of enlightening a few of your viewers. I feel like there's a lot of sort of false, almost like false advertising. Really, a lot of people they still think that Atleti is a very sort of 4-4-2 and very defensive and dirty side. But this season it's been very different. So I'm looking forward to sort of sharing that with everyone.
Yeah, that's going to be brilliant, honestly. I think, everyone sort of tends to think that they're very, very defensive, dirty type of sort of team, makes it really, really difficult. But yeah, it'll be good to get the insight from you. Johnathan, my bro, how's things?
Yeah, I'm really excited to be on just to talk about a different team, an opposition team, which is going to cause us a lot of problems. And look, I said, yesterday in the review, they're the second highest scorers in the Liga. They're not just a great defensive team. They can score goals. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to delving into this one because Tuesday's fast approaching.
Yeah, it is just around the corner. First of all, thank you for everyone that's joined, and also they'll be joining throughout the stream, and we'll see down the track. Thank you heaps for always supporting. Let's get straight into this. Jack, I just want to bring up the La Liga. Let's start from the table. I think it's interesting to sort of gauge exactly where Atletico Madrid is going. As Johnathan has sort of alluded that, they've scored quite a lot of goals. 45 goals, only 16 conceded. It's, if you look at Real Madrid, they've only scored 42, so they're actually scoring more than Real Madrid. Barcelona 50, so it's not like they're that far away from Barcelona. And you look at the rest of the league, they're well ahead in terms of the goal scoring department, and they're very mean in defense. Just this season, let's start with this season's sort of development with Atletico Madrid. Obviously they're leading La Liga. What has changed this season? I mean, is it more to do with Real Madrid and Barcelona probably not being that great, or Atletico Madrid have really, really been superb as well this season?
So obviously, it is a bit of both. Undeniably, Madrid and Barcelona, they have had a lot of struggles this season, especially Madrid with their injury problems. They've really struggled to sort of actually get any consistency and sort of actually build any momentum. But even just a week ago, there was actually a table and sort of a statistic doing the rounds that this point last season, Madrid and Barcelona pretty much have the exact same points. So it is more that Atleti have actually just built from last season. They've been able to turn a lot of draws into wins. And obviously a big part of that is Suarez, his arrival from Barcelona in the summer, the goals that he's brought, but not even just that. Simeone has sort of often talked about in press conferences how the entire shape of the team has had to change for him. Obviously, he's 34 now. It's not like his early Barcelona days or his Liverpool days where he would run and press non-stop for 90 minutes. His knees can't take that. So to sort of compensate for that, the entire team has sort of pushed up. So a higher defensive line has been held. We've been getting players like João Felix and Llorente much closer to the goal and much closer to Suarez as well. And that has been a big part in sort of the attacking threat and the goals that have come.
Right. And looks like they haven't lost the defensive shape as well. They still got that. Atletico has always been known for very good defensively. And as we saw, just looking back quickly again, 16 goals only conceded and only 2 losses as well. Obviously, the recent loss. We'll get to the form of Atletico very, very soon. But to Johnathan, I don't know about you, my man. I've been looking at all the different, the matchups in Champions League second round phase. For me, Atletico versus Chelsea is probably the most toughest one that I feel like is the match in the Champions League second round. Is that how you feel as well? I've looked at PSG, Barcelona. I feel like Barcelona haven't been that great in Europe for a while now. So I'm not that surprised that someone like PSG has actually gone out there and absolutely blown them out of the park. Sevilla versus Dortmund. I don't think Sevilla is that strong either. We've taken care of Sevilla. We've seen Porto versus Juventus. Once again, I think Juventus should be going through, but a bit of a surprise happening there. I don't think it's one of the most biggest blockbuster sort of matchups. I think Chelsea, Atletico Madrid. Do you feel the same as well? This is probably the biggest tie in this second round.
Certainly the most unpredictable. I mean, I looked at the 8 before the first round of games had gone, and I called about 5 that I was very confident. Even Barcelona, I felt like PSG were going to be too strong for them. It was a Sevilla Dortmund, but Sevilla are a different animal in the Champions League, completely different to their Europa League ties. And obviously this tie is just the one where you can't really call it. I would say it's 50-50 because if it was Lampard, again, no offense to him and how we were under him, but it was a completely different game and setup to what we are on a Tuchel now. So I'm a lot more confident. Yes, yesterday was a drawback, but yeah, it is the one game that I think a lot of fans will be intrigued by because Atletico are a more attacking team. Yes, I feel we will understand how they're going to set up. They're not going to allow us too much space. They've been conceding goals left, right and centre at the moment. But just to touch on that point about the high defensive line that Jack said, yesterday, 1-0 up, 90 or the last minute of the game, they're so high up, even Oblak's, up for the corner. That's how they concede the second goal because they want to get that point. So the fact that, they're committed so many players forward just shows that there has been a momentum shift. And, you don't top La Liga, only losing 2 games and drawing 4 games. I mean, as Jack said again, most seasons they will be right up there. It's not just the fact that Barca and Real Madrid have dropped off because, yes, they have. But, they've been really impressive. And I looked at a lot of highlights from them this season. And they're quite clinical. They're efficient. And, yes, Suarez has been an excellent addition by Simeone. And he is clearly a manager that demands a lot from his players. And everyone just seems to buy into his idea. So this game, I can't call it. But if we're going to get something out of this title, we're going to progress, we've got to get an away goal. Because, I fancy, they come to Stamford Bridge, they get an early goal. And it's sort of 0-0, 1-1 from the first leg. I fancy them to be able to defend that. So we need to get a goal. So I want to see more of an attacking intent. And I said this in the review yesterday. It's 7 or 8 games now where they haven't kept a clean sheet. They've conceded 2 goals, and I think 3 of them. It's encouraging, but they are a great team, and they're going to step up on the night for sure.
No. Let's talk a little bit about this form with Jack now. Jack, obviously, Atletico Madrid. They've the last 5 has not been the greatest, as you can see, win, draw, and a loss against Levante, which Johnathan was kind of alluding to. But prior to that, the way they started the La Liga season was absolutely on fire. What has happened in recent sort of times, which you've sort of seen the change as opposed to the initial parts of the season?
Well, it's sort of been a culmination of things, really. Just sort of going back to the unpredictability of the tie, when the draw was made, sort of early December time, a lot of Atleti fans were very happy with the draw. Like you said, Lampard was still in charge then, and to be perfectly honest, Chelsea weren't that impressive, not one bit, and Atleti were sort of the complete opposite at that point. Flying high. The Trippier ban hadn't been announced at that point. And at that point, that's when things started to sort of go off the rails a little bit for Atleti, certainly defensively. So you had the Trippier ban announced, and then since he's not played, we've only kept one clean sheet, which sort of obviously it's not correlation, but not causation. Sorry, but it's certainly a correlation there. And that sort of just snowballed and snowballed and snowballed to the point where we're now having to play one of our most effective attackers in a right wing back role. And I know on the review show for the Southampton game, you guys were obviously discussing sort of Reece James, his ability as a wing back compared to just a regular fullback. And that's something that we've really struggled to replicate as well without our first choice wing backs. So normally we have Carrasco on the left, and Trippier on the right. Obviously, Trippier is suspended for this game. Carrasco is injured, unfortunately. And those two provide so much creativity, and the engine that they have going up and down the flanks has really been key for the sort of upturn in form at the start of the season. So it's sort of just snowballed and snowballed and snowballed. You've had the Trippier ban, you've had a lot of injuries, you've had a lot of players sort of testing positive for COVID as well, and having to sort of miss a few weeks for that. And it's literally got to the point where there is a very bare bones squad. And because of that, you've had players, like I said, playing out of position. And it's now gotten to the point where we're traveling to Bucharest, so that they're actually traveling tonight at the moment. And there's not a single senior right back in the squad for the game. So if there's going to be one area for Chelsea to exploit, it will be definitely down the flanks, because without Carrasco and Trippier, the entire system of three at the back that we've been playing really does just fall apart.
Yeah, now as much as I don't like injuries to players, but that's good news for us in the sense that both of those, because I've seen a couple of other videos from other sort of Atletico Madrid or even just football fans, and then they were saying how immense Carrasco has been this season, alongside Trippier, obviously, but Carrasco coming back the second time around has been really, really pivotal to Atletico's rise this season, as you've mentioned.
Yeah, absolutely.
Johnathan, let's talk about the whole, obviously this is going to be in a neutral venue in Bucharest. Should this matter too much to Atletico? I suppose we don't really have fans either in our stadium, so I don't know how much of a fan's home ground benefit that you do get, but playing away to Bucharest and traveling, does that give us an edge, or does that give them? Do you feel there's an edge for anyone here?
Yeah, the fact that it's neutral, I think it helps us. It's without fans, it does certainly. You lose the advantage as the home team, but it's a fantastic stadium, and they would feel a bit more comfortable at home for sure. So the fact that we're having to go away and they're playing their home game in a neutral venue, maybe it might play into our hands a little bit, but they know how to perform on big nights. Atletico Madrid, they're a fantastic team, obviously, in the league season. They've done so well since Simeone's joined, but they are really good in the competition because he can set them up for 1-2 games. So wherever they are, I feel like they're going to perform. But just one question I want to ask Jack. I know we will probably go into this, but we're talking about the system and talking about how Carrasco and I think it was Trippier. Trippier, who's been obviously banned, suspended. So do you think, with the three at the back that you've been employing and the fact that you don't have a right back, do you think you might switch to two and then sort of try and find, I think Lodi's the left back, isn't it? I don't know if you can try and find a right back. Would you maybe go with Jimenez out as well? So Jimenez obviously came off injured. He's not in the travelling squad. Carrasco's not in the travelling squad. Do you maybe go to four at the back and play two centre-backs and try and find a right back from somewhere else to try and counter the fact that if you do have three centre-backs, you're not really sure at all with your wing-backs?
Yeah, it's definitely a possibility, especially, like you said, with it being a two-legged tie as opposed to just a regular league game. I think if Jimenez had been fit, then three at the back definitely would have stuck. I am more open now to the idea of switching back to a 4-4-2. But to be perfectly honest, I can't see it, simply because we've dealt with injuries for quite a while now. So Carrasco missed a couple of games, then came back for the Levante game in midweek. And even with the injuries, we've still stuck to three at the back. So credit to Simeone actually, because it's certainly not the first time since he took over. Obviously, the 2014 team that reached the Champions League final and won the league, that was very much 4-4-2, and you knew that the team sheet each week. It sort of printed itself. Since then, he has tried to sort of evolve the team a couple of times, make it more attacking, change the system a little bit, but at the slightest sense of panic, he's stuck with this three at the back for so many weeks without key parts of it that really make the system tick. In some ways, you could say that that's a perfectly valid criticism, because you should be able to then adapt the system to the players that you have available. But I think Simeone is very, very much sticking by this new system and is willing to sort of die by the sword with it, really.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I think if you look at the two teams right now, who's more comfortable playing through at the back, I'd say that we are. We've got a left back, a left wing back, and we've got a couple of options at right wing back that can attack you and cause you problems. Not so good going back, but yeah, I feel like if it was to be a matched up, three at the back for both teams, I would be more confident, to be honest. Let's see. It's very interesting to see. I'm looking at the last few lineups that you've had, and I can't quite put my finger on who you'd have instead of Jimenez, if it's going to be Hermoso or Savic. But we'll obviously get to lineups and stuff. But
yeah. No, for sure. We definitely will get to the lineups. There's some questions coming up as to which current players are in form. We'll definitely address all of that. Tyrone is saying they might bottle the La Liga. Look, I don't know.
Well,
how do you feel about that, Jack?
On that point, our last title-winning season in 2014, we actually had a similar scare sort of around this exact time period. So in the space of a couple of weeks, we lost 3-0 against Osasuna and 2-0 against Almeria. Like I said, within a couple of weeks. And at that point, we were then we dropped from first to third, and that was sort of being talked up as a bit of a bottle job as well. But obviously, sort of held on nerve and came back. And to be perfectly honest, I think the fact that it is now much closer will sort of play into the whole mantra of game by game or partido a partido, and sort of Simeone would definitely prefer to. I mean, this is going to sound really weird, because obviously every coach would love to storm the league and win it by 10, 15 points, like City are probably going to do this season in the Premier League. But it definitely fits Simeone's style much more to have a close league and keep the squad sort of motivated for the competition through that.
That's interesting. That's a very interesting point. Jack, I want to now talk about Atletico Madrid. They have this. They love Champions League football. There's something about Champions League that they really, really enjoy. And they love this sort of knockout stage situation. They thrive in this sort of situation. We saw how they knocked out the reigning champions last season with Liverpool. And there was a span, was it, that they had gone to either 3 finals off the back of like 5 seasons, something like, or 2 finals in 4 seasons, something like that. And obviously, Real Madrid was the one that triumphed them in those times. What is it? What is it about Atletico Madrid that they so enjoy this stage so much, and they understand the knockout phase situation? I feel like better than any other teams out there. What is it that is it Diego Simeone sort of his I suppose skill set that gets the best out of this, or is it like the fans just love this situation?
I mean, that's quite a tricky question, because actually going back further, we actually have a very difficult relationship with European competition. So back in the 70s, one of our nicknames is El Pupas, or the cursed ones, and that's from a European Cup final against Bayern, where we were winning quite comfortably, ended up drawing, and this was back at the time where cup finals, then you had a replay for them. So we literally a few minutes away from lifting our first European Cup, and then we ended up going to a replay and getting trounced. I think it was 4-0 in the end. So we actually have a very difficult relationship with European competition. So it's quite interesting how Simeone has been able to sort of take that and sort of manifest that amongst the fans into something positive. And going back to the fact that it is going to be played in a neutral venue, that is going to massively impact Atleti, because we saw it even last year against Liverpool in the first leg, like you said, reigning champions. The difference that the crowd makes at the Metropolitano and formerly at the Calderon as well is huge. And I think it's just Simeone literally lives for these nights. He's a bit like Klopp and a bit like Mourinho. Well, old school Mourinho, certainly. He loves the cameras and the fact that all of the eyes are always on him. There's been plenty of great clips over the years of him either, showing off to fans or running up and down the touchline, and he really just plays up, and that energy just feeds into the team.
No, absolutely. There's a comment here from Thompson Jones. Always Thompson Jones just gives out the best comments out here. Please check out Atletico Madrid's Twitter. They've posted the players they're taking to Bucharest. I'll bring that up. And then next up, we will talk about the formation lineups and all the players. That'll be very, very interesting as to how they set up and how they play. Meanwhile, I'll just quickly ask Johnathan. Johnathan, Diego Simeone, he's got to be one of the very, very top-notch managers out there at the moment, right? He's obviously been managing Atletico Madrid for a while now. Jack, help me out. How many seasons now Diego Simeone has been?
So he took over December 2011. We've just been knocked out of our domestic cup. So longest serving manager in La Liga at the moment by a long way. I think that the next longest is like 3 years, something like that. So he's been around for a long time.
Yeah, so basically it'll be 10 years, Johnathan, at the end of this year. This sort of time frame is unheard of in this day and age for a manager to be in a club for that long, especially a top club like Atletico Madrid, who are definitely a top club. You rate him very highly, Diego Simeone, one of the best coaches out there.
Yeah, I just love the fact he lives and breathes for the club, for the players, for the football, and like Jack said, for the cameras as well. I just love his aura. Not always been as impressive as football. It's not the most enjoyable sometimes, but like we've alluded to, he has been reinventing himself. They are quite entertaining this season. But it's interesting, we're talking about the European pedigree. They got sort of 3 semi-finals in 4 years, and 2 of them were in the finals. In the last 3 years, group stage, round of 16, quarterfinals. So it hasn't been as good in the last few years, but they're certainly a team that's set up, as I said earlier, for European nights. So yeah, I'm cautious of, like Jack was saying about the neutral venue, but yeah, they're going to cause us problems. And there's some interesting comments about obviously which players they're taking, and Joao Felix in the travelling squad. And then I want to get onto this point about the fullbacks, because that's why I was talking about the 3 at the back and the 4 at the back, because looking at some highlights, the Celta Vigo goals where they drew 2-2, both of them were crosses. Yes, one of them was deflected yesterday against Levante, but in the last few games, they're quite susceptible to crosses. And obviously that has a lot to do with the wing backs and the fact that they're not as comfortable with the players that they brought in. So, I feel like this is certainly a topic I want to explore when, we're talking about lineups and how we feel they're going to set up.
No, 100%. Let's do this. Let's get straight into this. I think we've built it up nicely for this conversation right now. Let's have a quick look. First of all, shout out Thompson Jones for letting us know, man. I've got that, list out of the players Atletico is taking to Bucharest. Jack, how do you feel looking at whilst we do this, we're also going to do the formation and lineup, and that way we can sort of have a clear picture of how possibly Atletico Madrid could set up against us, and what could be the style that they could sort of impose on the particular night. So let's start with the keeper situation, Jack. They're taking, how do you pronounce that? Gerbic? Is that how you pronounce that? Gerbic. Oblak, San Roman. Oblak's not number 1. I know he's number 1, but he doesn't have the number 1. But that's strange. From your perspective, obviously you expect Oblak to start?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. First name on the team sheet every time.
By the way, Atletico Madrid is very well known for good keepers in in their history, in recent history. Are any of the other ones worth a shout at all? Gerbic and San Roman, are they worthy enough?
I wouldn't really be that comfortable if Oblak were to get sort of quite a serious injury or even just miss a few games. Gerbic is quite highly rated. That's a terrible pronunciation, but he's sort of Eastern European, so I have no idea how to pronounce their surnames. But he is sort of very highly rated. He's still very young as well. But our most promising young keeper is actually out on loan at the moment. So yeah, I'm just sort of praying that Oblak manages to stay fit. Otherwise, that would end our season.
Wow. So all sort of responsibility lies on Oblak. Let's look at the defenders situation at the moment. Renan Lodi, I've heard a lot of good stuff about this particular defender. There's a lot of good videos as well. Lodi. Savic, we all know his days at Man City, albeit probably a short stint, but he's then obviously done really well for Atletico Madrid. Felipe, Hermoso, Alvaro G, Ricard. Out of these defenders, how are we setting up at the back? And let us know a little bit about each of these players as well that you're going to start, and what can we expect from them. So you're going with a 4 at the back here?
3 at the back.
Oh, you are playing 3 at the back?
Yeah.
Okay, let me just sort this out.
Sorry to sort of ruin that for you there.
No, I was thinking that you guys might play 4, but yeah, you might match up, yeah, because Chelsea's obviously playing 3 at the back, so it could possibly be a match-up. All right, who will be your 3 at the back?
So on the left, Hermoso. So this is a sort of quite young centre half, brought in from Espanyol last summer. So he's been there for a couple of years now. Had a really difficult first season. Wasn't able to get into the team at all. Whenever he did play, he looked very, very sort of shaky, very, very sort of unsure of himself. But this switch to 3 at the back has actually been in part to sort of allow him to enter the team, because he is fantastic on the ball. He's got a great eye for a pass, both aerially, sort of switching the play diagonally, but also sort of threading in sort of through balls as well, and sort of being able to split passes in between the lines. Interestingly enough, Real Madrid actually had a buyback option on him for about 10 million euros, and they passed him up.
Wow, interesting. The middle CB, which is always a very interesting one, because the way we sort of play, that middle CB is someone who, touches the ball a lot and need to be very, very good on the ball, be able to sort of link up with midfield, diagonal balls to find the wings. And also positionally, you have to be very, very aware. That's why Thiago Silva has been playing for us in the middle. Who is it going to be for Atletico Madrid that's going to play that role?
Completely just out of necessity, it'll be Felipe. Again, brought in sort of a couple of summers ago, and he was fantastic last season. Sort of playing 4 at the back really just suited his strengths completely. He's not that great on the ball at all, and he doesn't have the most pace in the world. He is quite slow, and the switch to 3 at the back really hasn't done him any favors at all. He's really struggled for game time, just because our sort of go-to backline has been Hermoso, Jimenez, and Savic. So he struggled for game time, but he just looks completely lost with 3 at the back. But with each game, he has looked a little bit more assured. So hopefully on Tuesday he'll be a rock back there. But yeah,
how is he in ball playing sort of ability wise?
Terrible. Like an old school sort of classic 4-4-2 centre half. And actually he's given away sort of quite a few goals this season with sort of like sloppy passes and sort of individual errors, due to having more touches on the ball.
But yet you're going to have him in the middle.
Yeah, well, like I said, just completely out of necessity. I think Cholo is completely, no doubt going to stick with this 3 at the back. And yeah, he's the only one that's sort of able to play in the middle there.
Wow, that's a massive tick for us. On the right side, who do we have?
So Stefan Savic. So like you alluded to, a player that a lot of Chelsea fans will probably remember from his time at Man City, where he wasn't that great at all. He's been with us for quite a few years now, and this season he's grown to be very, very defendable indeed. Really improved his ball playing skills over the summer, which has been a pleasant surprise really for a lot of fans. He's just so calm and composed on the ball, and he's actually sort of looking very assured at the back now, which compared to a couple of years ago, when every single time he played, he looked like he was either going to give away a penalty or get sent off. It's been a massive improvement over the last few years for him.
So Lodi, what's the rating at the moment for Lodi? I mean, does Atletico Madrid fans rate Renan Lodi?
Yeah, so he's very highly rated. So he had his first season at the club last summer. Well, the season just gone. Was fantastic throughout the league campaign, and especially in the tie against Liverpool as well. He really didn't put a foot wrong at all. He's still very young. He's only 23, and this is only his second season playing European football. So there's still a lot of growing to be done for him, and a lot of development to be done there. He hasn't adapted to the three at the back at all. Sort of quite similar to Reece James, really. He looks great as a regular fullback, but as soon as he's asked to play as a wing back, he just looks like a completely different player, and he's completely lost. And yeah, he still has a lot of good faith, sort of built up in the bank, simply because he is so young and because he was so good last season. So there's certainly nobody sort of writing him off just yet. And I think defensively, especially, you learn your defensive traits sort of with time compared to, it's much easier to sort of realize your potential in an attacking sense, but defensively, that's where he has been struggling. Like Johnathan sort of mentioned, a few of our goals have been conceded through sort of crosses and things like that, and a lot of them have come from his side. He has an issue where he's either way too deep and sort of is unable to get out to the crosser and sort of do anything about it, or he's way too tight to his man and just gets beaten way too easily. So the flanks will definitely look to be exploited by Chelsea, I think.
Johnathan, so far the back sort of three and the keeper, you feeling confident at the moment that Chelsea has, or they can manage to penetrate that back? Oblak, obviously a top-notch goalkeeper. Hermoso is a very good defender. Felipe seems like a bit of a suspect, as Jack has mentioned, and Savic, we know he's good. But that four combination, how are you feeling, Johnathan?
I still fairly solid. It would still keep up most attacks in world football. But yeah, I mean, it's positive because they haven't got Jimenez. But Oblak is a fantastic keeper. He's someone that's going to be able to organise anyone. But yeah, I still think my main priority or my main focus, if I was Tuchel, would to go down the wing backs. Those space in between the left wing back and the right wing back and the centre backs. The fact that these three haven't played probably together very much, the fact that they will probably leave gaps in behind. I mean, we saw the gap that Zuma and Azpilicueta had between them for the Southampton goal yesterday. I feel like that could be something that we could exploit. But it could also be that Simeone says, look, you guys need to just sit, defend, don't allow any space, because if they don't allow us any space, we haven't been very good in getting in behind it and creating triangles and gaps and breaking lines. So if they do just sit in and instead of having a high defensive line and stop us from having any space, and if we go with one up front, let's say we go Giroud, Abraham or Werner up front, they're going to find it very difficult against three physical and strong centre backs. So I would certainly go with someone like Giroud, more physical, able to link up play and bring others in. Because if you've got someone that's going to back up against those three and allow players to come in behind, because he might end up occupying two of the defenders, Giroud. Yeah. If you then have a Werner, Mount, Hudson-Odoi, someone else playing off him or two behind him, it will then, if you then have 2-3 players breaking in on three players and, they've got their wing backs forward, you can then have Alonso or whoever playing left wing back. He normally plays as a sort of a second striker anyway. So I feel like the opportunities for us to overload will certainly be there. So if we can push up on them and try and get into the space that I think they will leave, we should have some joy. But talking about us breaking down a solid and resolute Atletico Madrid team, whichever ones they play. As I said, I feel a bit like Tuchel. He has a system and he drills his players. If you play in this position, this is what you need to do. And Simeone is so well versed in drilling his players and them dying for the cause. So yeah, it's probably better than it could have been if they had not any injuries, but they're still solid and it's still going to be tough to score goals.
No, it's a good point that you said about the Giroud factor. Even if you can draw two of these defenders, let's say Felipe and Hermoso, then it will allow space for players like Timo Werner and Mason Mount and even Callum Hudson-Odoi if he gets to start. Obviously, a lot has been talked about Callum Hudson-Odoi, but if he does get to start that right side, hopefully we can overload, as you've said. And we all know what Giroud is capable of, as you alluded yesterday, Johnathan, that he has the ability to sometimes sort of drag back around these areas and look for the opportunity to score. Coming back into this lineup again, Jack, who's going to be your two wing backs? Let's start with the left wing back.
So only player that's available, again, out of necessity, Renan Lodi.
Right. So you're going to have Lodi on this side. Fair enough. Is he a left-footed player?
Yeah. So he normally plays as a left back. Yeah.
Fair enough. And on the right side,
it'll be Llorente.
Let's spell this right.
Which is completely makeshift, isn't it? Which is another reason why, Alonso playing so high at the pitch could be, or whoever plays left wing back, I may be open to sort of a different change there. But I mean, it's something that we need to exploit, as I sort of allude to. And to talk another point about Giroud, he's always in the box for crosses. And if, we've alluded to the fact that they've been susceptible, Giroud is going to be in the box. And I'm not saying we want to become Cross FC, which a lot of players or a lot of fans thought that Chelsea were under Lampard. But, if there's a weakness, you've got to exploit it. There's no harm in looking at weaknesses of other teams and trying to go after them. So, there's certainly options because Llorente's really good going forward. And Jack said about how he's been getting up closer to Suarez. And, we saw in the Champions League last season, 1 or 2 goals, I think Llorente scored. If you haven't seen much of Atletico Madrid in the Liga, most fans will know the goals he scored at Anfield. So, it's very interesting because, without first choice players in those positions, it's interesting when we're going through the team. I get a little bit more confident, but I don't want to get too excited now because, like I said, Simeone is a beast and he will make sure that his players are up for the game.
No, for sure. And we're gonna obviously ask Jack as to how this formation may look like this, but with the ball and off the ball, how it all sort of pans out, that could be very, very different as well. How are you setting up in the middle, Jack, or how do you expect Atletico Madrid setting up in the middle? What is it going to be? 2 sort of centre midfielders?
I imagine so.
Fair enough. And who are they going to be?
So one of them definitely will be Koke, captain, leader, plays literally every single minute. The other player is tricky because on paper, absolutely perfect game for Kondogbia. But since he signed from Valencia a few months ago, he really hasn't sort of been able to string even just a couple of good performances together. He's a bit similar to Lodi. When we've played 4 at the back, he's looked great. But when we've played 3 at the back, he just really hasn't sort of been able to get any consistency there really, and he's really struggled. So I'm going to go for Saul as the other central midfielder.
And Saul's a very good player, but generally he doesn't play this centre midfield position, does he? Doesn't he generally play? Or this could be in previous days. Is he more of a central midfielder now as opposed to more of a forward player?
Yeah. So when he first sort of came onto the scene, there was a lot of excitement about him, sort of in part due to his versatility, but also the fact that he could get forward so quickly and so easily. Sort of quite similar to Lampard when he played for Chelsea. Obviously, he'd have that sort of late arrival into the box.
Yeah,
Saul had something very similar, but his versatility has sort of killed his development a little bit. He's been asked to play out wide. Even last season, whenever Lodi was injured, because we didn't have a sort of backup left back, he played a lot of games at left back as well. He's even played at sort of right back a couple of times. And that versatility has ultimately sort of come back to haunt him a little bit, and he hasn't ever been able to get a string of games in his preferred position. And as a result, he's now just, I mean, he's still a good player, don't get me wrong, but compared to what was expected of him sort of 4 or 5 years ago when he first came onto the scene, he hasn't developed anything like he was sort of expected to, really. So now he's just very much he'll just sort of sit in the middle of the park. He'll be very safe with possession. You know, he won't try anything too outrageous or anything like that. And he'll often sort of make sacrifices himself in order to do a lot of dirty work for the team.
No, fair enough. Jonathan, so far now we've looked at the back three and the keeper. We've now seen the wing backs and the centre midfielders. Koke, you know, someone, man, this guy is a talisman for Atletico Madrid. I've seen him play so many years now. One of those players who will make it very difficult for us. He's one of those guys that loves, you know, we've recently had in our fan base, as you probably know, Jonathan, that lot of a major part of the fan base have been screaming out saying, you know, we need players that really get in there, you know, loves a challenge, you know, makes it difficult. We know Koke is that type of a player. How do you feel about this sort of wing backs and the centre mids that Jack has sort of lined up?
Yeah, just from my perspective, when I've seen him play, I feel like he just embodies everything that Simeone wants on the pitch. Yeah. I've seen him sit a little bit deeper. I've seen him go a little bit more forward. He's obviously very good on the ball. But a question for Jack. I mean, Kondogbia, quite suspect for that. I think it was him that sort of dwindled on the ball against Levante. There's been other times that I've seen where he's just not been quite at it when when he needs to get the ball and sort of get rid of it. He does sort of. I wouldn't say mess around because it's not really the right word to use, but he just takes a bit too much time. And I feel like if we've got players in and around him that can nip out or get near him and nip the ball off of him, he could be suspect. So I get why you would put Sal and Koke together. But if he does play Kondogbia, do you think he'll be sort of a sole DM and then you'll go maybe 2 attacking mids in front? Is he... People talk about Kante sort of seek and destroy, someone who wants to go and win the ball, or is Kondogbia just going to sit there and shield if he did play?
Yeah, just be sort of sit and shield. Although that doesn't really sort of utilize his best attributes. He does often sort of like to get forward. He's not like a full-on box-to-box midfielder, but he can sort of get forward at times. He does have sort of quite a nice passing range. So a couple of weeks ago in the build-up to a goal against Celta Vigo, I think it was our second, he played a lovely ball out sort of just in front of the edge of the box. He played a lovely ball out to the left that then created a cutback. So he can be good on the ball, but like I said, he just takes too much time to sort of be trusted in a game like this, especially if somebody like Mount is playing, because I feel like his pressing ability would just cause nightmares for Kondogbia.
I love how the opposition, it's crazy how sometimes some parts of our fan base don't seem to rate Mason Mount, but you hear opposition people, and I've not just yourself, Jack, I've had a few other people from, in the Premier League, the Wolves. I had Dave from Wolves. I had, who was it, Jack from also, Fulham. And
Leicester as well, I think he mentioned the guy from Leicester,
yeah, and every single one of them have mentioned that how impressive Mount is from their perspective. It's crazy that, as I said, the opposition value him so much as opposed to certain parts of our fan base, which is strange. Going back into this lineup, Jack, how are we setting up in the front three? Is it going to be 2 up front, or is it going to be...
So this is where it gets a little bit interesting. So you sort of have Thomas Lemar as that player that you've sort of highlighted there with your mouse, but he doesn't sort of play that far forward. He's sort of been playing much deeper, sometimes even acting like a third central midfielder, and he has been just a complete revelation over the last few months. It really is crazy. I've
seen your timeline. You've been talking about Lemar a lot.
Yeah, so just to sort of put this into perspective, a few years ago, he was signed for 70 million euros for 70% of his rights from Monaco. So effectively, the club valued him at 100 million euros. which is, I mean, that, you know, that's an insane amount of money for most players, let alone somebody who, apart from that one season where, you know, Monaco had that incredible team and won the French league.
Yeah.
Apart from that, he'd never really stood out in terms of, you know, goals or assists. And it took him a long time to sort of get to grips with the club. He struggled a lot. And that's, you know, that's an understatement. There were a lot of times where he wasn't even sort of, you know, being trusted to come off the bench or anything like that. Whenever he did play, he'd often be sort of subbed at halftime, just because he looked very sort of scared when on the ball. Like, he didn't trust himself to be able to just complete a simple 2-yard pass, let alone try anything else. But this system change and him playing more centrally and also deeper has meant that he sort of plays almost in between the lines a little bit. So when he does have the ability to get on the ball and sort of turn, he has much more time to then sort of pick out a pass and actually do what he wants. He has sort of been out the last few weeks with COVID. He came back yesterday, played for about half an hour. He came on actually for Jimenez. He subbed on for Jimenez, and we had to change our shape a little bit there. But the most exciting thing from that game was the fact that he looked sharp and fresh and like he'd never been gone, because there was a concern that even though he'd been playing very well since sort of November time, there was still a concern that a lack of continuity and sort of missing a few games would then mean that he, you know, he'd be sort of quite rusty. And obviously we still don't really know, you know, the effects of coronavirus on footballers. Obviously, for Chelsea's case, you know, Tuchel and Lampard have spoken about Havertz and how it sort of impacted him. So there was a big concern sort of about Lamar, but he's come back with a bang, really. He was absolutely electric against Levante. Unlucky not to score. Tested the keeper from range a couple of times, and just sort of having that confidence to actually even attempt those shots, which is something that for the first sort of year and a half of his Atleti career, we just hadn't seen at all. I
remember Lamar from the Monaco days, and he was unbelievable in that Monaco team that had, I believe that was a Monaco team that had all of these players that ended up being stripped away by, you know, Bernardo Silva was part of that team, Fabinho was part of that team. We ended up, I think we got Bakayoko from that time.
Well, yeah, I think for a long time there was a bit of a competition between who got the worst buy from that team, either us or you guys, with Bakayoko and Lamar. But I think we've probably just about edged that one so far.
And it's crazy. People talk about, you know, being patient and knowing that there's that human element when coming into a new league and a new club. You know, staying patient, and that adaptation period can take time. And it's great to see that you're saying that Lamar's coming up trumps now, and he's playing really well. Not just last, you know, few games, but this whole season in a whole. So yeah, it's great to see that from Lamar. Going back into this now, Jack, who are your? Is that how you're setting up as well, to at the front, or you doing something?
Yeah, so sort of have one just a little bit deeper than the other, almost like a sort of second striker. Yeah, just like that. Yeah. So that would be João Felix.
It's going to be Suarez, yeah?
Yeah, of course.
It looks pretty dangerous, that front, and especially the midfield. I want to, before I ask Jack about anything, I want to see how Johnathan feels about this front, because I'm a little bit worried now looking at that midfield and the three up front, because there seems to be a lot of, especially Suarez. We know he's aging, fair enough, but Johnathan, we know what this guy's capable of. This guy can turn defenders around. He's got that uniqueness about him, how close control with the ball. It's like the ball just sticks like a magnet to his feet. He's very quick. Felix, I think he's one of the up and coming, superstars in world football. There's no doubt about that. And I've seen a little bit of him through the Champions League campaign this season, and he's been fantastic. Jonathan, how are you feeling about this sort of five? If we were to look at five at the back and then five in the attack, how you sort of looking at that?
Yeah, Suarez for me is instantly the guy that stands out that we have to be afraid of. Suarez just seems to be in the right part of the pitch all the time for Atletico. I mean, he scored so many goals for them. What does interest me though is the goal that got disallowed yesterday, where he sort of pushed the player. He can be like that, and we've got to watch off the ball because he's going to try and get every single advantage that he can. And I want our centre backs to be wise to that, because he's going to look for niggles and pushes and shoves. And I just want us to know that that's how his game is. Don't be naive, because he's 34. He's a seasoned veteran. He knows exactly what to do and to be in the right positions to score goals. So very, very dangerous. I mean, yeah, Lamar, good on the ball, I feel. Haven't seen the best of him yet. I feel like he will get better. And, what a way to announce himself on the scene to everyone, to remind everyone of his ability, than to have two great games against Chelsea. And Joao Felix took a bit of time to get going. I haven't seen loads of him. Whenever I've seen them, he never seems to play. And when I look at highlights, he was out for a few weeks. So, is that going to have an effect, like Jack said? So that front three is dangerous, and it will cause us problems. But I still think, Suarez, we have to watch him. We can't just let him drift. And again, another problem we had against Southampton, another game since Silva's been out, is about passing that striker between the centre-backs. We cannot allow him to get in that hole between two of the centre-backs. When he moves, he has to be passed across, right to left to centre. He has to be
and Jonathan, Suarez, one of his key elements is just drifting and ghosting behind defenders and knowing how to find that space in between. It's so important to have Thiago Silva back, man. I will not be one bit comfortable if it's either Christensen or Zuma, let's say, for instance, if Silva's not fit. But it's so important, isn't it, Jonathan, that Silva is back for this match?
100%. And I feel like that's why he wasn't in the squad against Southampton. I do have a big feeling that he is going to start. He'll go with experience, in my opinion. He'll go with Azpilicueta next to him. There's a lot of calls for Reece James to maybe play there to allow Hudson-Odoi on the right. But in a night like this, okay, I know it's a neutral venue, but it's an away game where we have to be solid. We cannot afford to go 1-2-0 down or concede a few goals in this game. He's going to go experience. I hope Silva's back, and I feel like he will be. Azpilicueta next to him, and then you think Rudiger next to him. Yeah. So that I'd say those three have to be wise to Suarez's antics, because he may fall on the floor, make it look like you've hit him in the face. He's going to step on your toes.
As long as he doesn't.
I mean, we've been victims to that, but look, he's in the right place at the right time. Like I said at the start of this little thing that I said, he's always getting in parts of the pitch that can hurt you. So we have to watch him, and he has to be marked. If there's any one danger that I would want us to sort of commit a man marking to, it would be Suarez for sure. But they've obviously got Felix and Lamar, and I still feel like if Llorente I don't really know how he plays in that wing back role, but if he was to get forward again, he's shown under Simeone that he can score and he can attack. So that front five I feel like is better for them than the back five, just because they're a bit more comfortable. But look, the whole 11 is going to be very, very difficult. It's going to be an incredible game. And I say I'm really, really excited because, now after all the games, even though Juventus are behind, and as we said earlier, I feel like that all 7 games, I know who's going through. This game is the one on the knife edge. And the first leg is so important because if we can go there and get a goal, even just one goal, even if we draw 1-1, they have to come out at Stamford Bridge and score, which, may see a change of tactics for them. So right now they're a little bit weak, backs against the wall, obviously with the recent results, but they're going to be firing. Don't kid ourselves. It's not going to be an easy game.
No, for sure. Jack, I want to talk to you about some tactics here. With the ball, a couple of questions. Obviously, initially we had in the live chat asking about who are some of the key players. With the ball, are you expecting the wing backs to really combine in the attack here, or is there some sort of formational change that takes place? Is this somewhat sort of what you see with the ball? Sort of let's start over here. Who's the playmaker? Who's generally the players that build it up and looks for those decisive passes?
So normally it is Koke and Lamar. Even though Lamar, both Koke and Lamar haven't really got the best numbers in terms of goals or assists. They're often the players sort of providing the pre-assist, the pass before the assist. So both of those will certainly look to sort of pull the strings.
Do they operate around these areas with the ball? Like, these are the areas they're operating with the ball?
Yeah, so Lamar is sort of interesting because he has been given a much sort of freer role. He doesn't have as much defending to do compared to sort of other players. So he will sort of just try and pop up in pockets of space in between the lines, whether that's sort of slightly on the right half space or on the left. He will just sort of try and, a bit similar to Suarez, really, just sort of ghost in between your midfield and defense. Llorente is going to be key. His sort of link up play closer to the goal is fantastic, especially his ability to sort of run beyond defenders. Suarez,
so we can sort of expect him around here, sort of these sort of areas at times.
Normally, yeah, but with him sort of playing wing back, it has been sort of much more limited. So it's only sort of been a couple of times a game that he's actually been able to break sort of through that last line of defense. But what we've often seen is sort of Suarez almost not necessarily dropping that much deeper, but just acting as a reference point for players like Llorente and like Felix to be able to then run through and sort of play off of. So a lot of sort of flicks off and 1-2s, a bit similar to Giroud. Certainly in his Arsenal days, I haven't seen much of him at Chelsea, but that sort of, reference point for then players like, for example, when you guys had Hazard to then sort of run through with the ball. João Felix, I know obviously Johnathan mentioned that whenever he's watched us, he hasn't seemed to be playing. He does sort of tend to come alive a bit in the Champions League. Certainly this season, his best performances have definitely come in the group stages compared to in sort of league games. He hasn't really been able to get that much consistency in the league. He started off very well, and up until sort of about mid-November, he was actually playing very well, sort of week in, week out. But since then, whether it's just his age or other reasons, I know he has had a few issues in sort of his personal life with relationships and things like that, like any young bloke does. But he just hasn't had that consistency in sort of league performances. So hopefully, given it's a big Champions League night, he will have a big performance in store. And actually, he is the reason why we actually were able to get through the groups for a large part. So.
How do you? This is an interesting comment from Taha Deb. Simeone will sit back and play counter attack. Do you feel this will be the case, Jack, at all, or do you feel like they will come at us?
It's really difficult to say, just because this new system hasn't really been sort of tried or tested that much against like tough opposition. So in terms of Champions League games, obviously, the first match of the group stage, we had that disastrous 4-0 against Bayern. That was still playing 4-4-2. That was just after we'd lost Thomas Partey, who actually last season was our best central midfielder. So Simeone was also trying to figure out a lot in terms of how the midfield was going to operate, who was sort of effectively going to replace Thomas's role in the squad. Hence why, obviously, we got Torreira on loan and also brought in Kondogbia a little bit later on as well. Since then, obviously, we had the sort of defeat in the 2-0 defeat in the league against Real Madrid in the derby. Even though we played 3-5-2, we didn't really sort of compete as much as we sort of could have done, and we sort of got stuck between doing what the team sort of knows best in a big game and sitting back and dropping very deep and effectively parking the bus and then springing counter attacks, but also trying to play and sort of have comfortable possession and sort of try and go toe to toe with them. And we ended up sort of doing neither and just sort of allowing the game to sort of pass us by for large periods of it. So it's completely up in the air whether Simeone will revert to type and go for a classic 4-4-2 and sit back and go on the counter attack. But that's definitely not the way to get the most out of Suarez. You know, at this point in his career, like we saw in the Real Madrid game that I just mentioned, Suarez was just completely isolated up front on his own, because you had half the team sort of trying to sit back and defend deep, and the other half trying to be sort of quite progressive with the ball and sort of push further up. So whatever way Simeone decides to go, the entire team needs to sort of go with that.
No, fair point. Just quickly before I let sort of Johnathan, if he has any final questions, just quickly from my side, Jack. I've always known Atletico Madrid as one of the very, very best teams out there in terms of pressing. Is that still the case at the moment? You guys press out of this world, and who is the sort of instigator that leads the pressing in this particular team now? Yeah,
so Koke is very much sort of the leader in the press. You know, he's very much sort of organising the team. You know, telling people when to go, when to sort of hold, things like that. But Llorente is the one that sort of presses the most by far. He is just an absolute animal. He literally never stops running. I mean, he runs like 10, 15K a day for fun anyway, let alone sort of just on a football match. So he literally never stops running and never stops pressing, which is sort of why he's just been the go-to to fill in for Trippier, because he does sort of have that engine. So, you know, when we don't have any right backs available, he's just sort of been the one to sort of slot in there as naturally as possible. So him and Koke will be key. In terms of sort of flipping that on its head a little bit, and in terms of press resistance, and because I know obviously Chelsea like to press quite a lot. Lemar is going to be key in that, because he is surprisingly press resistant. And that's sort of gone some way in replacing one of Thomas's biggest strengths, which was his press resistance. So Lemar does actually have a surprisingly decent ability to sort of beat the press, turn, and then release the ball. So I think
much like, would you say much like sort of Kovacic, the kind of stuff that he does for us? Yeah.
So Chelsea will need to be sort of quite careful and cautious in sort of pressing him too tightly. Otherwise, he could open up a lot of gaps and a lot of spaces in behind.
Who's your big player? Before I go to Johnathan, who's the player that you are thinking? You know, if Atletico goes through this tie, who's your number one player for Atletico Madrid?
I mean, in terms of changing a tie on its head, I think it'll be Felix. We've seen, like I said, in the group stages, he has the ability to just turn games around, you know, with the flip of a coin, basically. Against RB Salzburg in the group stages, we were actually trailing, and you know, at that point, even though it was only the second game of the group stage, following the 4-0 defeat against Bayern, had we then gone on to lose that game, we would never have recovered, and you know, we'd be talking about I'd be talking about a upcoming Europa League tie, let alone a Champions League tie. But there was just a sort of a 20-minute spell from Felix where he just turned the game on its head completely.
And I remember that. It was unbelievable that game.
If there's going to be anybody that can do that in a tie like this, then it will be him.
No, fair enough. Jonathan, any last questions for our man Jack?
Yeah, there's a question in the chat about possession-based team. I feel, you know, you have a lot more of the ball when you're playing a weaker team, an inferior team. But in a bigger games, which I suppose you could probably class this as, and especially ourselves, we like to keep the ball, especially on the Tuchel. We're very good with the ball and keeping it. But in the bigger games, you don't seem to have as much possession. So I just wanted to address that one, because I feel like we will see a little bit more of the ball. So you're going to have to work a bit more off it. But what player from our lineup, or our squad, shall I say, are you most afraid of? Who's the guy that you're worried about from Chelsea? Because we've heard a lot, and I've been really interested to kind of delve really into the psyche of a Atletico Madrid fan, and how you set up and play and your predicted lineup. What are you worried at from us? Because I know there's quite a few, but if you had to pick one, who are you most afraid of?
Probably a wing, like a very pacey winger like Hudson-Odoi. I don't know whether Pulisic is going to be fit for this tie, but if Pulisic,
We
if
don't
he's
know.
fit, then yeah, fair enough. But if he's fit as well, I think getting that pace in behind will be crucial, and especially if we do decide to try and hold a high defensive line and try and sort of keep possession and things like that, then I am actually quite fearful, because a pace like that in behind would just be brutal, especially against sort of a very slow centre half like Felipe.
Fair enough. Jonathan, any more questions?
Yeah, I was going to say prediction for this game.
I'm going to go 1-1.
1-1. I'll take 1-1, man, Jack. I'll take that. Thomas.
I mean,
yeah, go on.
Sorry,
go on,
just sort of jump in there. I do think it is going to be, well, I mean, obviously any away goal is crucial in any European tie, but I think with the amount of injuries and sort of players missing, getting an away goal is going to be absolutely crucial for Chelsea, because for the next leg, for the return leg, Trippier will be back from his ban. Carrasco, should everything go well, be fit. We should have Jimenez back, although he is sort of made out of glass, so we'll probably only find that out about sort of 6 hours before kickoff anyway. But having those players back will allow the system to sort of work it in full again. So I feel like getting an away goal is going to be massive for Chelsea, and sort of exploiting those missing players.
I think 1-1 kind of keeps the tie very much in balance. It'll be good for us to get that away goal, but I don't know if we are able to keep a clean sheet at home with the likes of the lineup that you've sort of came up with Lamar and Felix and Suarez. That would be a massive task for us to keep a clean sheet there. Just a couple of questions here. Tom has said, really enjoying the show, lads. Question for Atletico. Sorry if I missed it. Tell me when and why Simeone went to 3 at the back and how it evolved, just quickly from that perspective, Jack.
Yeah, okay. So the 3 at the back came about sort of quite early on this season, sort of a few weeks into the season. It came about for a lot of reasons, really, and nobody is entirely sure sort of why. Sort of what made Simeone change from a 4-4-2 to something as radical as a 3 at the back. Obviously, a big part of that is Thomas Partey leaving and that press resistance sort of in the centre of the park. But then equally, you've had players like Trippier has been absolutely phenomenal. He was good for us last season as a regular right back, but as a wing back, the connection that he formed with Llorente as sort of a weird winger, but not really a winger, but just sort of runs everywhere. The connection that they had sort of down the right-hand side was sort of crucial as well. And I think a lot of it is just getting more players closer to Suarez and getting him the ball in situations closer to the goal. So it's a lot of factors that have sort of all come together. So you've had the Thomas Partey departure, you've had Trippier, you've had Lamar sort of playing better in a central position as well, and it's sort of just come into one.
Fair play. All right, let's wrap this up, man. Jack, honestly, it's been a pleasure. Just for everyone out there, just quickly before we go, Jack, we haven't asked you this. Tell us how you became an Atletico Madrid fan, so all our viewers get to know the background. Because every time you think about Atletico Madrid, they're thinking about maybe a Spanish fan that comes in and a local person. But obviously, Jack, you're someone who knows Atletico Madrid football very well. Tell us how it sort of came about.
Yeah, so when I was a kid, I just went on holiday to Madrid with my family, and the first game I ever saw was at the Calderon, Atleti's former ground, and sort of from that point on, I just completely fell in love. So I'm actually from Liverpool, even though I don't sound at all like a Scouser. But yeah, so I was sort of a bit of an odd one out, sort of growing up. But Actually, to be fair, there was a lot when I had like sort of summer football camps and stuff like that. There was a lot of my mates who had like Juventus kits, Inter Milan kits, like Netherlands kits, Ajax kits, stuff like that. So, you know, we were all actually sort of quite into our European football, which is sort of quite surprising because back then, obviously, you know, it wasn't sort of quite as readily as available as it is now. But yeah, it just sort of grew from that really, and sort of, well, obviously at the moment not able to go out to Spain, unfortunately, but I try and go out there sort of as much as I can and catch a lot of games.
Man, that's brilliant, man. Seriously, that's such a wonderful story. And I love to hear that kind of stuff. You know, it's someone abroad, much like me. You know what I mean? I live in Sydney, Australia. Yeah. I'm a Chelsea fan. Similarly, you live in you know, Reading and you follow Atletico Madrid. It's fantastic. And every sort of, as you said, when you get the opportunity, you do want to go there and watch something of. And similarly to me, I can't wait till the pandemic is over and come down to London and go to matches with my main man, Johnathan, and, you know, just have a really good time. But yeah, guys, that pretty much wraps us up. We've gone through a lot of things here today. We've got the lineup here that we're sort of expecting against us from Jack, sort of predicted lineup. Whole heap of tactical information has been thrown around, so please do go back and check that out. We've got the team that is traveling to Bucharest from Atletico Madrid, and yeah, we've had an absolute ball today. Johnathan, before we go, any final thoughts?
Now we'll be going and checking out the Chelsea kind of preview, the Chelsea aspect of it tomorrow. So I'm mincing my words here. An hour and 10 minutes talking. Yeah, we'll be doing that tomorrow. So we've talked a lot about Madrid today to kind of give everyone an insight into that. Tomorrow we're going to be obviously doing Chelsea. Thanks obviously to Jack for coming on, because it's been really interesting to talk with an opposition fan. To kind of get to know them more. But yeah, make sure you smash the like button, guys. Come on, smash the like button, subscribe. Make sure you tune in daily to all the content that Miz brings. Obviously, I always enjoy coming on here. It was a bit flatter yesterday, but I'm more and more confident as the minutes go by, leading up to the game on Tuesday here. So yeah, really, really excited. And the way I became a Chelsea fan was my dad, and that is so boring compared to both of you. So yeah. Very nice. But yeah, really, really happy, and obviously looking forward to the game now.
Now, fair play. Yeah, of course, guys, do tune in 7 p.m. UK tomorrow for the preview. Johnathan will be back. Myself and Dan McCarthy will be here. I could have maybe one more special guest, but for the timing, it's just this three. I want Jack to sort of finish this off for us. Any final thoughts? Just quickly as well, guys, thank you so much for joining in. All of their social information is in the description right now. Go and follow Jack, please. As you can see, you know, someone lovely to talk to. And obviously, you know my man, Johnathan. If you're not following Johnathan right now, I think you're doing things wrong. But yeah, Jack, some final thoughts before we close things up.
Just looking forward to the game. Looking forward to being able to see how it unfolds. To be honest, I'm really gutted that fans aren't you know, back in stadiums at this point, and that it's happened to be played out in Bucharest, because it would have been a great game to sort of go along to. Have some quite fond memories of Champions League ties at Stamford Bridge. So it's a shame I can't add to those, but yeah, it's been great to have a chat with you guys about it.
Brilliant. So guys, that wraps us up here. We'll see you guys tomorrow with Johnathan and Dan McCarthy. Until next time, see ya.